The crew of Artemis 2, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. Just wonderful to speak to you. Reed, you said after landing, we are bonded forever and no one down here is ever going to know what the four of us just went through. I mean, now you've had a few days back on Earth to process maybe just a small bit of it. Do you have words to try to explain to us what you just went through?
We were 250,000 miles away from our home planet. We saw the far side of the moon. We saw the sun go behind the moon and create this unbelievable eclipse with a halo. At that moment, I turned to Victor in the spacecraft and I said, I don't think the human mind has evolved to the point of being able to understand what we are looking at, and he fully agreed. We were living in such close quarters that we would I would say crawl all over each other, but we would utilize each other as a single entity to get the job done at all times. And then we would just hand the baton across. Whoever had the operational lead would take it, they would run with it, and then we would come back together as a crew. It was the most fluid and well-supported thing you could ever imagine. And the reason that I say people just won't ever understand is I think people can look at the video and they can see four humans and they can see them living. But there's always that latent fear that one false move, one wrong thing, we're 250,000 miles away from our families and our home. You always have this thing that is underneath the surface that is keeping you focused and keeping you alive and really making sure that you don't let your crew down and you don't let your families and the folks on Earth down. And maybe that's the best I can do. But I haven't had too much time to reflect on that yet. We've been pretty busy here back in Houston.
Christina, with what Reed said, you saw things that no human has ever seen before, parts of the moon. And I know you took a lot of photographs that showed the Earth and the moon in ways that we've never before seen. Do you see now, what do you see now, Christina, in your mind's eye the most? When you're asleep and you're dreaming, maybe still thinking you're floating, what goes before your eyes that you just saw?
I think the thing I see the most out the window is planet Earth. We saw it in so many different phases. We saw it in different sizes. We were close in proximity. We used its gravity to propel ourselves along with our translunar injection burn to the moon. We saw it as a crescent as it set behind the moon and rose behind the moon. And the idea that every human experience that we've invented, that we've gone through, that means something to us as people, everything that keeps us alive, that's the same, is all in that small orb that's hanging like a lifeboat in so much blackness. And the unifying power of that, the perspective of seeing the Earth as one of many places, one of many existences when it's next to the moon in your perspective, when it's not an absolute, but it's just one of many in the universe. That is something that you can only see when you look out the window, and it's what I take with me every day. When I go to the beach, I look up and I see the blue sky, and I think about what it looks like from the other side against the blackness of space.
Victor, it was during our show when you had the lunar flyby, so we were watching you all live. Anybody watching the show, they were watching you guys that night. What was it like in that moment? All of a sudden your feed breaks up and you're completely cut off from mission control for 40 minutes. I mean, I'll be honest, we were sitting here on set and we were nervous, and it felt like a miracle when communications resumed. And I understand it's science, right? But it felt like a miracle. What was the silence like when it was truly just the four of you and you're hundreds of thousands of miles away and you have 40 minutes alone?
It was silence between our spaceship and spaceship Earth, but it wasn't silence on board. We had a few human moments, some levity. We shared a cookie and some choice words, and then I said a prayer, and I was back into the window describing the pieces of the moon that we could see out the window. And I'm a big fan of the Terminator, and it was just such an amazing and captivating scene to try and describe that we went right back to it. It was very busy. But I think the moment was more leading up to it when we had a chance to speak to Earth and just to say, hey, we're getting ready to go into the blackout, and we look forward to talking to you on the other side. And I actually thought of saying something else that just, when I spoke about love, I almost wanted to make a comparison to physics, quantum entanglement, and how it doesn't make sense that I can feel the love from here, but I can. And we want you to feel the love from the moon. And so that spooky action at a distance maybe muddied the picture. And so I just said something that's very familiar to me about love, and then went right back to work. And it was quite active in that capsule. But we were very excited to hear from Earth when we initiated that comm check on the other side.
Your extraordinary accomplishment and who you are is inspiring to so many, for all of you. So it's hard to imagine being any of you. But Jeremy, perhaps some of us could imagine seeing this through your eyes best because it was your first time in space. What was most unexpected for you? Even though obviously you were trained, you were prepared for everything. What was most unexpected?
For sure, seeing the eclipsed moon. When the sun went behind the moon, we had prepped with science. We'd seen some images of what we thought it was going to look like, but it was close, but it was not like that. And it was weird and it was eerie, and the blackness. I've seen some of the pictures that you saw here, and that's not what it looked like exactly to my eyes. It was different. And it was sort of like how sometimes movies try to portray a black hole, but it was also three-dimensional. It wasn't just a disc, and it wasn't flat, and it was just a crazy thing to behold. That definitely surprised me. And then also just how much fun it is in space. I was hoping it would be fun in space, but it was so much fun in space. I loved every moment of that journey.
Reed, one of the most emotional moments of the mission was when we heard the crater dedicated, Jeremy dedicating the crater to Carol. And your two daughters were watching that dedication from Earth. Your brother Bill was here with us the night that happened. What do you think Carol would have thought about this mission and knowing that you had accomplished this?
It's when she was starting to try to get through this. When she was starting to get sick, I wanted to get her up to her family in Virginia, and that was the most important thing to me, to make sure she was comfortable and well cared for. And she just wasn't having it. I mean, that woman loved her children more than anything on planet Earth. And she wanted those two girls to stay here, to stay in their school system and their friends and where they were comfortable. And she also knew how much this meant to me. And at that point in time, this meant nothing to me. Like, being an astronaut meant nothing to me. All I cared about was her and our two kids and keeping it as stable as humanly possible. But she did not want us to leave this area, and she wanted me to continue down this path and to just see where this journey took. And I don't know if she felt like she was responsible and therefore she didn't want me to leave, but that was definitely her desire. And then her family really turned to, and my family turned to, and they kept me on this train. It took a lot of support, because this is not where I expected to be at the end of 2020. I just wanted to run and hide, to be quite honest. But they all just kept me pointed in the right direction. And then to know that Ellie and Katie were in the back of Mission Control, and that was not planned. That was completely accidental that they were there that morning when Jeremy made that talk, and when he spelled out her name, Carroll. I know that was really something special for me, but to be quite honest, to speak for the crew, that bonded us right there, right then, in a very, very emotional and significant way, and we will never forget that.
Victor, we also, what is the bond like? I mean, the four of you were together in such a small space. I mean, even sleeping, you would have had to be sort of bumping into each other essentially the whole time. How do you describe the human bond that you have to be stuck in a little tiny space together for 10 days and you're still best friends?
It was a feature of the mission. I think we worked really hard, technically, engineering, operationally, procedurally. We also worked really hard as humans to understand our limitations, and also as a team to understand our team's capability and strengths. And I think each of us knows we couldn't have done this alone. And we really had to lean on that, because you couldn't do anything alone in that spacecraft. Everything was a group activity. And we just got used to passing each other water or cleaning up the water. We spilled a lot of water we wanted to drink. And so it just became natural. And I would say it wasn't learning to accept. I think we embraced it, and it became fun. I could crawl on Jeremy, and he could just crawl under my leg and get in his suitcase, and I didn't have to move. And we just learned to work with it instead of working against it.
Christina, the moment when the capsule came back and it separated, it was like a champagne cork almost, and we're just looking at it, and then afterwards, when it's charred on the outside, you're inside. communications go away. It's a burning ball of flame. You've got a few inches here separating you from that. What was it like?
Well, re-entry is the most spectacular part of any human spaceflight. It is truly, in every way, coming back to a plane. It is not landing a plane. Windows on Orion and Integrity did not char over. We watched the entire re-entry, and it was spectacular. The plasma ball that we were inside of got as bright as an arc welder to the point where you couldn't even look at it. We were rumbling, we were feeling the G's, we were hearing it in each other's voices, and just trying to take in every single sight, every sound, every sense to be able to carry it back to Earth with us, because what it taught us is about ourselves. Nothing is more precious than human life, and we all feel that.
We are so grateful that you're taking the time to try to explain to us the unexplainable, I know, to try to put words on it and to share it.